welcome to today's episode of this Organized Life podcast. I am your host, Lori Palau, and today you are in for a treat because we have a really fun guest that is going to be joining me in this conversation as we start to enter holiday and decorating and entertaining and all the things. But before we get into it, I just want to kind of bring you up to speed over some things that are happening. I am going to be in Austin in a couple of weeks. If you're listening to this live, it should be heading in towards the end of October. So in about 3 weeks, I am going to be with my team in Austin for our annual partner retreat. It's when all of our partners from all over the country come together for a weekend retreat. And so if you are out there and you're in the Austin area, we would love to hear from you. So feel free to slide into our DMs or shoot us an email at info@simplybeorganized and let us know. We would love to hear from you. And if you are a professional organizer or aspiring professional organizer and want to learn more about our program so you get invited to these fun things like our annual retreat, make sure that you reach out to us as well. And so we can tell you all about all the things that we do for professional organizers in that community. Okay, I think that's all my public service announcements for today. Now, let me get into our guest. So joining me is Marian Parsons, and Marian has a new book coming out. And if you were listening last week, I think to last week's episode, I think we had Shira Gill on, who just released her book. So we are here supporting other women who are releasing books. And her book is called Feels Like Home, which, hello, I love that. Marian, she's going to tell you all about herself. She is a pastor's wife. She's a mom to 2 boys. I'm a mom of girls, so we could talk about that. She's a creative at heart, and I love her story because she started this side hustle literally for extra grocery money, and it has turned into this huge lifestyle brand. If you are on Instagram, she's Miss Mustard Seed, and we'll of course link up to that. She's got a huge following, and again, she just released this new book, and it really helps people to use their own creative persona to develop the space that they want to live in. And I think for so many of us, when we talk about organizing and clutter, there's so much shame involved with people's homes and not necessarily feeling good about their spaces. And really all I want people to do is feel like their space is a reflection of who they are. And so I love what Marian's doing. I wanted to come out, bring her out to let us tell her a little bit about herself, tell her about her professional journey, what her personal life looks like, and kind of where that intersection of creativity, and putting your own design, decorating spin can play out, especially as we enter this season where we want people to be able to open up their homes. Considering, the past 18 months that we've had with COVID, for a lot of people, this year's holidays are going to have even a greater impact because we haven't been able to see friends and family and loved ones the way that we have before COVID. So we want to set you guys up with as many resources and as much encouragement as we possibly can. So without further ado, let me welcome my guest, Marian Parsons, to the show. Welcome, Marian.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here.
So good to have you. If I could speak, I don't think I've had enough coffee. I don't think I've had enough coffee today, so bear with me. But I gave our listeners a little bit of insight into you, but in your own words, always love to hear from you. Can you tell us a little bit about you and who you are?
Sure. I was thinking about this ahead of time and gosh, I've got to work on my elevator pitch because it's always such a challenge when you're a creative entrepreneur and you wear so many different hats to describe what you do, because it's really is a little bit of everything. But on my business card, it says I'm a paint enthusiast because just about everything I do kind of comes back to paint, whether it's decorating, fine art, furniture, even developing a paint line. But I'm I'm also, as you said, at the heart of creative. So I do writing, photography. I'm an artist and a designer as well. And I love working on my homes. So I sort of go wherever my curiosity takes me. And that is a lot of places. So that's in a nutshell.
And then on the personal side, you've got two kids. What are the ages of your kids?
They're in eighth and ninth grade, which I can't believe. I started my blog when they were like about 2 years old and almost one. And so it was, my blog readers have watched the boys grow up over the years, although I don't share my kids a lot, but I can't believe they're that old now.
I know it's hard to it's hard to believe. I think back to when I started my business and I had like a kid in kindergarten and second grade, and now they're grown and flown. So
Right. And
it's
do you
yeah.
wonder, like, how did we do that? How did I do that at the time when they're so little and need so much? But you just make it happen.
I love it. And I think it's encouragement for other people out there that are listening, specifically women who's our core audience, just to really encourage people that you can do things. And I'm sure it doesn't necessarily look traditional. I'm sure you wrote at during nap time or when they were before they woke up or after they went to bed. And we do these things when we can, and it doesn't have to be this necessarily this linear path that we take. And so I always love to showcase women entrepreneurs that have maybe taken a non-traditional path, maybe not going necessarily the corporate route. That's not to say there's anything wrong with that at all, but I think people think that things have to be an either or. And I know I'm living proof that I always say, like, I made up a business before it was even a business. Like, nobody knew what professional organizing was. And so, again, if you've got a gift and you want to be able to share that with the world, there's a way that you can do it, even if it takes time or is done in little segments. So,
Oh, yeah. For a long time, I sort of felt like, oh, I'd love to buy and sell antiques, or I'd love to get more into design. I've always loved anything creative. I've always loved that ever since I was very little. And the issue is that I felt like, okay, but first I have to have a degree in, art history or antiquities or whatever. Like, I felt like there were all these prerequisites. And when you're an entrepreneur, that's really just not the case. You don't have to set a bar of standards for what you have to have and what you need to be able to start the business. You can just start and learn as you go. And that's really what I did. I didn't have any business experience. I had no capital to put in the business. I had two very little boys. There was just, if you look at, okay, should this person start a business? The answer would be no, she shouldn't. This is a bad idea. Does she have experience? Does she know what she's doing? No, I didn't. But I just, it was the time. It was just the right time. And even though I was terrified, I had very, very low expectations for what the business would be. It really did feel like a calling, and I kind of took so many steps of faith. That's why the business was called Mustard Seed Creations. Now it's Mustard Seed Interiors. And that's why it was just so many steps of faith that I took along the way. And, some worked out. Like you said, the path is not linear. It's not like this graph that goes straight up. It's a roller coaster. Some things work out great, other things don't. But you just look at sort of the overarching career, and have you been doing what you love? Have you been, serving the people you want to serve? Have you been saying what you want to say through your work? And ultimately, yes, that's what I've been doing.
and I love one thing that you said, because I say it as well. But it's really about almost lowering the bar in terms of what your expectation is, I think sometimes. And I'm, kind of rephrasing what you said, but I talk about this in the world of organizing as well as entrepreneurship, because there are two things I'm super passionate about. I think sometimes we set these unrealistic benchmarks of my house has to look a certain way, or I have to have all of these ducks in a row before I start a business or a side hustle or whatever it is. Whether when I'm just like, you don't, or I have to have all this time, or I have to have all this money, or whatever it is, that fill in the blank. And the reality of it is, if you just start and you just start small and you just say, I just need to get to here. right? And the here is like the next step as opposed to a mile down the road. And that's why I tell people start with a drawer, start with a, one small area, start with the shelf, because that is actionable. So if you're like, I'm going to write for 20 minutes, or I'm going to do this project for 20 minutes, or whatever it is, that gives people permission to like not have to feel like they have to do everything with excellence to the pedigree level that we somehow have given ourselves this false narrative.
Yeah. What's amazing is I think when you think about doing things in 20-minute increments, or I'm just going to work on this a little bit each day, it feels like, well, but I'm not going to get very far. I've got to give it the whole day, or I've got to commit to a month of this, or I've got to do. But once you start doing it, those little bits of time, it is so powerful to look back and see, oh my gosh, everything I accomplished in a month. Really, my whole book was written in increments of about an hour at a time. And it's just like, okay, I'm going to write 1,000 words today, and then 1,000 words the next day, and then 1,000 words the next day. And eventually it becomes a book. So I am a huge believer in the power of just doing little bitty bite-sized things. And it really does add up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're going to talk about your book, but I'm going to make our listeners wait a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about it. So I want to talk more about your business, about the creative business, because I think for me and for our listeners, let me take it back a step. My goal is to have people ultimately feel good about their space, period, full stop. And that looks different to everybody. And the methods that people use are different. I believe that organization is a path to freedom. It's not about, can we have everything lined up, like sleeping with the enemy? It's not about, I love that. And don't get me wrong, I walk into the Container Store and I hear like, oh, I recognize that that's not everybody. But what I do believe is a common denominator is that people want to have a sense of peace when they walk in their home, whatever that looks like. And so I want to be able to help people accomplish that, because there's so much chaos in the world outside of what's in our control. I feel like our homes should be a place of sanctuary. It doesn't have to mean that we're like at a spa at all times, but we want to feel good about that. And so we want to surround ourselves with those creature comforts that make us feel like this is a place we want to be. And what I find is there's so many people that don't feel that way. They maybe want to, but they can't get it. They can't see the forest through the trees. They are riddled with either guilt or shame or embarrassment or overwhelm, fill in the blank of all of these things. And it's hard for them to kind of see the path of how to get there. So whether it's bringing in an organizing expert to talk about strategies of how to do that, or bringing in someone like yourself who almost has a different approach, but at the end of the day, I believe, without putting words in your mouth, your goal is probably to help people feel really good about their spaces.
Yeah, definitely.
So can you just kind of speak into that a little bit about who your audience is, and really how they've grown, because it's grown to be this incredible community.
Yeah, it really is an incredible community. I've learned so much from my followers. They've given me so much back, and it's a great community. And I love this era of social media where we can hear more from our community. Whereas in the years of just blogging, it was we'd get comments and stuff, but it was, I think, much more one-sided. So anyway, I'm enjoying that aspect. But yeah, I think at the heart of my business, even though it's about creativity and decorating and refinishing furniture and painting and all of that, really the thread that runs through it is inspiration and encouragement. I want people to come to my blog, to my Instagram, to my book, to my YouTube channel, all of those places, and walk away feeling empowered and not feeling like, I think there can be this thing in decorating magazines and books and shows where there's sort of this ideal that's put out there, and it can be an unrealistic expectation of people who are working on a budget. They have a full-time job, they have kids, they can't hire a designer to come out and design their space, but yet there's that craving to have a beautiful space to live in that's it doesn't have to be conventionally beautiful. It's just beautiful to you. That might be quirky, that might be mid-century, that might be antiques or farmhouse, it can be anything, but it's something that feels like home to you. Like you said, when you walk in and you just feel it feels like home. It feels inviting. It feels like a sanctuary. And gosh, don't we need that in this world right now? We need our home to be a sanctuary and truly a space that feels comfortable and safe. And I think so much of that then is about being able to tailor it to what works for you and your family. What kind of life do you want to live in your house? What kind of stories do you want to be told in your home? When you have guests over, how do you want them to feel in that space? So I want to focus on, yeah, we talk about things that are superficial, like refinishing furniture or rearranging things or making a slipcover, sewing a pillow, all of those things. But the greater goal is to then make the mismatched hand-me-downs fit your personal aesthetic, make the room feel like a room that was designed just for you. And I really, as opposed to just like doing it for people, I want them to be empowered to do it themselves. So then they can not only experience a beautiful space, but that a sense of accomplishment of, oh my gosh, I did this myself. And so I've seen that through the years. I know many, many people have made slipcovers for the first time. They've never sewed before and they
Oh my
followed
God.
my tutorials.
When you said that slip covers, I'm like, listen, that's above my pay grade right there.
But it's, I think again, like you look at a finished slipcover and like, oh, I could never do that. But then when it's broken down into, okay, you cut pieces that can fit here and here's how you put it all together. It's just like following a recipe when you're baking something. And, the first one you make, I mean,
Sure.
it's not going to be like a professional seamstress made it, but you learn with everyone. And I'm just a huge proponent of progress over perfection, never stop learning. Some of the best things happen when you kind of step outside of your comfort zone. And I've gotten so many wonderful emails from people who are like, oh my gosh, I've never sewn in my life, or I've never painted a piece of furniture in my life. And they're sending me pictures of what they just did. And they can't believe that they did it themselves. And they're super excited about it and they're ready to do more. So, it's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to sew, not everybody wants to paint, but I think everybody does have a desire to make things, to create something, and certainly a desire to nest and to make their home feel like a sanctuary.
I mean, I know for me, I had always, because I'm not a creative. I always mix it up. I'm a very right brain, left brain. I'm the one that's not creative. I'm analytical. I'm your data person. But I would love that. I mean, my mom was an artist and it totally skipped a generation. I will say that. But I learned my COVID project, not that we needed one, but I learned how to knit during COVID.
Good for you. I did too.
I had wanted, it's something that I said, you know what? I wish I could learn how to knit. I think it'd just be like, again, I just have this like image of like sitting there, it just looks so like cozy and whatnot. But it was one of those things that I was like, I don't have time. I'll put off. And then when we got put in under under quarantine, I was like, listen, now's the time, like if there's ever been a time, now is the time. And I did it and I loved it. And I haven't been doing it. I kind of took like the summer, like once the weather got nice, I stopped doing it. But now as we're starting to enter into kind of like that fall winter, I'm excited. And I actually have a group of girlfriends that want to learn how to knit. I'm like, we'll do a little knitting club. We'll just do it. And I think for so many people, and I'm hoping that you could speak into this, it's about starting. Like because I get this question all the time. It's a question / comment of, this isn't a good time. It's not the right time to start. I have too many other things going on. And I do believe that we have to prioritize how much time we have in a day to spend to do things.
Sure, of course.
But I would imagine in your space, there's a lot of people that are just apprehensive of taking that first step.
Right.
Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Well, I actually just wrote a blog post earlier this week called "Start Where You'll Start." And there's a very popular saying of start where you are. And I think that's great. Like start with what you have and where you are and what you can do. But I sort of changed it to start where you'll start where you will actually start. And so maybe that's, well, I want to knit, but I'm afraid I'm going to make something that's wonky. It won't look good. Well, then don't try to make anything. Maybe just make a square, a swatch, just start where you're going to actually start, where it's easiest. If it's, I want to start a business. Well, okay, the first step is I need to pick a name, or I need to figure out what I'm going to make, or what service I'm going to sell. So it's just about starting with sort of that, like you were saying earlier, that first easy step. And it can be applied to anything, whether it's you want to learn how to paint, you want to learn how to knit, you want to make a slipcover, you want to decorate your house. Just figure out that first step that you can take, that you will take, so you don't get stuck in that, well, I don't know, I can't do this, or I can't do that. Because you take one little step and then you take another step, and I think momentum breeds momentum. And once you start getting going, then you get excited. You can see what you're capable of. You're surprising yourself. You're learning things, even if things don't turn out perfectly, you're learning. And then you can kind of continue to move along. So I think it's just important to start wherever you will actually start, and just do it.
I love it. And again, it sounds so simple, right?
But we get stuck. We get stuck on ourselves. Like, even so, I have to just like take a second, because so many people say, I'm not creative, like you just did. And
Yes.
I know it's easy for me as someone who paints, and I'll just sit here and say, no, everybody's creative. But I really do believe that so many things that we look at as, this is a creative skill. This is creative. Painting, sewing, designing, this is creative. And I am not in that world. So therefore I am not creative. Creativity is a huge bubble that encompasses a lot of things. Accountants have to be incredibly creative. People who are designing sports plays, people who are organizing, you have to be creative to be able to discern what kind of system is going to work for your client. Maybe the Container Store isn't it. Maybe they need piles. Maybe they need a filing system. Maybe they need open baskets. Maybe they need closed storage in order to feel comfortable. So creativity encompasses so many things. And then a lot of the things that we look at is, these are just creative skills that people were like, they came out of the womb with a propensity to be able to do this. And that's just not the case. They are learned skills. As I decided I wanted to learn oil painting, and it wasn't a huge leap, because I had done murals, I had worked in acrylics, I had done a lot of other things, but I never saw myself as a fine artist. And I just decided, I've always envisioned myself, with a wood palette in front of an easel. And I just never thought I could do it, though. And a few years ago, I just said, okay, I'm going to paint 100 little tiny landscape paintings. And I kind of jumped on this challenge that one of my friends on Instagram, Michelle Wooderson, put out. And we painted 100 landscapes together, each at our own pace, but we did that. And through that process, that was the little incremental things. With each one I learned, people they wanted to buy the paintings, even though, like, gosh, I look back at them like, okay, you people are just dear, wonderful people who were being so supportive of me. But and now I see myself as an oil painter, and I'm teaching other people to paint. And it was something I learned. I've done so much studying in books. I've taken workshops, and I've learned it, just like you would learn to use Excel, or you would learn to play tennis. I've learned it, and I've practiced it, and I'm growing in it. So I really believe, if you're sitting there and you're hearing us talking and you're like, oh, I've always envisioned myself knitting, like you're just talking about, but it's too complicated for me, I just don't think I could do it, or I've always wanted to play an instrument, I just want to challenge you that those are learned skills. Maybe you're not going to be like a prodigy or a maestro or the best ever, but the opportunity to do something that you've always envisioned yourself doing, like, don't rob yourself of that. Just go do it.
I love it. I love what you said. And it's so interesting, because I talk about organizing being a learned skill. I talk
Yes.
about it in my book, that there are so many people that say, like, I'll joke that I was born with the organizing gene, and, it comes naturally to me. And it's true. There are certain things that it's the lens I see things through, and I have that kind of intuition. However, just because you don't have that naturally doesn't mean that you're destined. I see people like waving that white flag of like, well, I'm just disorganized, or I grew up in a disorganized house, or I grew up around clutter, or no one ever taught me how to do this, that means that you are destined for a life of disorganization and clutter and chaos. Not at all. If you want to do it, these are learned skills. So it's interesting because I never applied that same logic to stuff in the arts and when it comes to creativity. But I guess you're right, it really isn't. And it's about setting those realistic expectations of what that's going to look like.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why there are art schools. There's a reason why there are people like you who teach other people how to organize, because it is a learned skill. If art was not a learned skill, there would be no art schools, because that would be pointless then. Why would you need to learn something that's just, it's like, well, I need to go learn how to have blue eyes. Well, it's like, no, you don't, because you just have them. You can't help that. You just have it. But yeah, you can improve in so many things in those small incremental steps. So I am a huge champion of that. And I hope that you kind of break down that barrier and say like, okay, I am creative. I'm just not creative in maybe in these areas, but I'm incredibly creative when it comes to organizing and even just how you dress. I can tell you're a creative person.
Oh, you're so sweet. I appreciate it. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to get into some nuts and bolts about your book, maybe some practical tips and strategies and things that people can think about. So sit tight. We will be right back with my friend, Marian Parsons. If you're a professional organizer or have thought about becoming a professional organizer, but not sure where to start, you might want to check out our SBO Partner Program. It's a community of professional organizers from all over the globe who are running their own independent companies, but looking for community and some business strategies on how to grow and scale their business. To learn more, visit simplybeorganized.com and click on the Work With Me tab. All right, Marian. So talk to us about, first of all, congrats on the book. I believe at the time that this is going to be airing, I think it'll have just been released. What's the drop date of
October 12th?
My book anniversary too.
Is it really?
It is. And my friend Shira Gill, who we just had on our show, her book is October 12th. We all have book anniversaries on October 12th.
Oh, awesome. Well, yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm a book hound. My bookshelf is that way, but gosh, I have so many books. But there are worse problems to have in life than having too many books.
Sure.
So, but there's so many good books that I'm looking forward to coming out on October 12th. It's like this magic day for books. So yeah, that's the date.
Well, and I'm like looking at my notes. So at the time that this is, if you guys are listening to this in real time, it should be Thursday, October 21st. So go, as soon as you're done, you can go get all of these books that are book anniversaries on October 12th. So how did you, because writing a book is a big deal. So congrats on that. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of vulnerability to put yourself out there, even though you've been blogging, forever. It's just different, I think. And to just really, to go through that process, talk to us a little bit about what made you decide to write the book, what it's about, who it's for, all of that good stuff.
I knew for years that I wanted to write another book, and I wasn't sure exactly what it was going to be. I think the problem with being kind of a multi-passionate creative person is like, there are so many topics that you want to share about and want to write about. And when the idea for this book came about, when I moved into my current home, which is a suburban home in Minnesota, and when we were moving, I had this dream of buying this 100-year-old, Minnesota farmhouse, this beautiful old, old building.
I could picture this like Victorian, or this, like you said, a farmhouse, something with porches and whatnot,
surrounded by cornfields. That was what I envisioned. And when we started looking at actual houses that were available on the market, that just wasn't what I was finding. All of those were, 45 minutes outside of where my boys went to school, where my husband was going to work. And we also found, my husband was in a master's degree program at the time. So he's going to be working full time and finishing his degree. And he was like, we cannot have a massive project house. It just can't happen because I don't have the bandwidth for that right now. So we needed to find a home that maybe required cosmetic work, but wasn't going to require this full overhaul. And so as I started looking, there just wasn't an old house that was in our budget, that was where we wanted it, that ticked all the boxes. And the home that eventually did tick all the boxes, that had space for my business, that was great for the age of the kids, that was in the right area for their school and work and all of that, was this suburban home, which was kind of on my list of like, this is what I do not want, is a beige suburban home with a 2-story foyer. Like, they're beautiful. It's just not I'm just not attracted to it. I want an old house with all this charm and crooked floors, squeaking stairs. That's what I want. And so we ended up in this home that it was about 13 years old when we bought it. And it's a beautiful home. It really is. It's well designed. It has a great layout. It has all kinds of features that kind of speak to an old home, like transom windows above the doors. And it does have wood floors. It has a lot of great characteristics about it. So it's a wonderful home. But I found, like, when I was announcing that, okay, this is the house I'm moving to, I felt like, man, people are going to be so disappointed, because everyone on Instagram wants to follow like this great farmhouse makeover. That's what everybody wants to follow, at least everybody in my little Instagram bubble. And so I thought people would be really...
follow those people. What are you talking about? Because I think well, I don't know if everybody does, but that's my dream too, is I would love...
It's so fun to follow. And so I thought, man, people are going to be so disappointed that I'm buying like this like suburban beige house. And the feedback I got was completely the opposite. It was, oh my gosh, that kitchen layout is exactly like mine, and I cannot wait to see what you do with it. Or, I'm working with a very similar style of home, and I can't wait to see how you inject this home with your character. So it became this story that, instead of being this thing that we love to follow and watch unfold because it's not what we're living, it became, we're watching something unfold that's really relatable and so similar to what home we're living in. So I found that, gosh, this is maybe the most relevant makeover that I've ever shared, because it really does apply to so many people who live in suburban homes, or sort of the suburban cookie cutter style homes, whether it's actually in the suburbs or not.
Sure.
And so that became the idea for the book, is to share how to customize a home that feels very cookie cutter beige, run of the mill, average, and a way to customize it to your style. And that's where the book came out of. And I'll tell you, I've written books before, and it's always like this, as you know, you've written a book, like, it's just this kind of laborious process you get into, and you're like, oh my gosh, now I have to actually write like 40,000 words about this. And that's a lot of words about this topic. And, but this book, it was so easy. It just like flowed out. It was stuff that I've wanted to say for a long time. And it was such a joy to work on. I loved doing the photography. I was able to shoot some local homes as well as my own home. And the whole process it just was one of those projects that you're just happy that you're working on it all the time. So it was great.
I love it. And another thing that I just want to, again, emphasize that you said that I think has so much relevance, and I say this all the time to my audience as well, is like, you can be, an expert in your field. You can be the person that people are going to look to and still be in the trenches with them. You don't have to be in this, like you said, I have this, image of this, restoration farmhouse, whatever, fixer. I can be in I call them the vanilla homes, like a vanilla type, you're just vanilla.
Yep.
It's vanilla. It's good. It's a staple, it's vanilla. And that doesn't negate who you are, what you do. Like, I think we have this expectation that we have to check all of these boxes in order for people to respect us, or to look up to us, or to whatever. And it's all just kind of false narratives. And the fact is, I love also that you're just sharing with people that, even regardless of where you live, in an apartment, in a home, whatever it is, that you can put your own individual stamp on it and make it yours, even if the neighbor down the street has the same model house as you.
Yes, exactly.
the stuff that you are talking about in the book, because I think there's a lot of common themes of, how can I make my home unique? How can I make this space different? How can I stand out? And some people have a vision of what they know, what they want, and other people don't. Other people are just like, I know I don't want it to just look boring and ordinary, but I don't even know where to begin. What's your advice to those people that are in that camp?
Yeah. So I do think that visual aids can be helpful, like when it comes to looking through magazines or decorating books. Pinterest is a great resource. But I do think those can be a little bit overwhelming and you're not working with your own, like the stuff that you actually have. I think the danger there is you create these boards of these, dream kitchens that you love, and then they're nothing at all like your kitchen. If your kitchen's going to look anything like that, it's going to involve a full renovation that maybe you can't afford or you don't have time for, or it's just not a priority for you because, kids and other cars and other financial obligations. So I think that a great place to start, what I recommend doing is create a living mood board. So instead of creating a mood board from all the stuff that you're finding on the internet that you may or may not actually have, create a mood board with things that you have that you love the most in your home. It can be decorative items, natural elements, pieces of clothing, accessories, jewelry, books, papers. It can be anything. It does not have to be a decorative item. And collect those together and just maybe leave it there. Leave it on your table. Look at those things. What do they have in common? What are they saying together? And I think when you do that, and collect your favorite things, and don't worry if they match or don't match or whatever, just your favorite things. And really think about, why are they your favorite things? How do they speak to you? And I think that can say a lot about what colors, textures, patterns you love, what direction you want to head. And I think that can give you a good compass for starting. We make so many default choices in our home based on what's in the furniture stores or what we see predominantly on Instagram or Pinterest. And I think that we sometimes lose, like, what do we really love? What really gets us excited? What are the things that we always gravitate towards? So instead of following the trends and kind of what's, neutral and popular, collecting things, and maybe what you love is very neutral. Maybe what you love happens to be on trend right now. That's okay. Like, there's no rules of what it has to be or not be, but just collecting things that you love will immediately give you this picture of your style in a way that maybe you've never seen it before.
I think that's such great advice for so many reasons. First of all, you're starting with what you have, as opposed to just saying, let me just go out there and get a whole bunch of new stuff. You're
Right.
kind of looking at what you have. And I love the fact that you're using the things that you like, that you're gathering those things that you like to tell a story of what's the direction. Because I feel like in my world of organizing, I do so much in terms of trying to understand who you are, how you live, why you do the things that you do. And even if you like using somebody's closet as an example, when you start to pull everything out to see the volume of stuff that you're looking at, you're using this as a teaching tool to understand, okay, well, clearly you like this color. Clearly you like this type of shirt. I can do it in my own closet. If you walked in my closet today, you would probably see 6 different waffle shirts that look almost identical. Like, they have the same look to it. People call them like, oh, that's a Lori shirt, because that's what I have. Like, you're not really going to see a lot of blouses and things like that. Like, you have different things that you gravitate to. And when you take time to really look at that and resonate on that, that can help you decide what you're going to do moving forward, because sometimes we don't really take that. We don't pause long enough. So I love that you're telling people to be intentional about doing that, because that really will give them. So many people think, I want this, I want this kitchen, or I want this, whatever it is. But really, do you, or do you just think you do?
Right. Because think about when you're out shopping, how many things you've bought that you end up never wearing. Because when you're shopping, you're sort of thinking about this future you that maybe you'll be, or, maybe you'll wear it when you have this occasion or that occasion. And I think we do that for our homes too. We sort of think about, oh, well, this is maybe I saw this same look somewhere else and I really loved it there. So I'm going to try to bring that into my own home. But that's why I think it's important to grab things that are your favorites, because while we do buy new things and we get excited about those new things, we go back to our old favorites again and again. You go back to that old waffle shirt again and again and again, because that's what you love. So by recognizing that, saying, okay, well, what does a waffle shirt say? Well, it's classic. It's a design that's been around for a really long time. It's comfortable. So, if you were super into starched blouses, and maybe you'd want to go somewhere that's you like things that feel a little bit more formal and crisp and clean. With a waffle shirt, well, I want it to be a little classic, a little comfortable. It can be dressed up or it can be dressed down. So I think that if you can collect some things now, interpreting all the things you collect might be a challenge for some people, but I do think if you can look at it and say, okay, well, what an easy place to start is, what's the color palette that I see? And then what kind of textures am I seeing? Is everything very natural and muted and soft? Does it have patina to it and age? Is it shiny and sparkly? Is it glamorous? And from that, I think you can get some words that can give you some good style directions.
Yeah, I think it's great because I think a lot of times people just don't know, and
Yeah.
so they see stuff out there, or they're like, this seems like something I should do, but it's inauthentic to who they are. And I
Yeah.
really believe your home should be a reflection on who you are, the kind of person that, what do you want your space to be? Do you want it do you want it to be a minimalistic look? Do you want to have a lot of tchotchkes and knickknacks around? Again, what are you trying to accomplish? And then when it comes to decorating, I think that's really important. So I love that you're really incorporating that. What other kind of tips or strategies do you have for people out there, especially, again, as we're kind of going into this season where people are going to be coming over, maybe having dinner parties, going out, for walking into colder months, maybe, just having people over. What are some things that people could do to kind of zhuzh their house, even if they're not taking on a big project, but maybe doing something to just make their home feel a little bit more special?
Yeah, well, I think accessories are a great place to start. If you're not if you're happy with how the furniture is, or maybe you're not in a position where you're going to be moving all the furniture around and doing kind of a complete revamp of the room, just by editing and tweaking and adding accessories. So what I would do is do a little bit of a room reset. So this is something that should be done in just, a couple of hours. It shouldn't, I mean, maybe if you're just super enjoying it, you've got good music on, it ends up being an all day thing. But I think it can be something done in a couple hours where you take out all the little bits of the room, just things that you can pick up and carry. So anything that's furniture stays, any of the big stuff stays. You just take out like pillows, throws, little accessory things. And then once you have a relatively clean slate, start putting things in again. Maybe you grab things from other rooms. Maybe you think, oh, I'd love to have some holiday seasoned pillows, or I'd really love to add a throw that has a warm, cozy color to it, just to add that little pop that feels more like fall, or kind of transitioning into winter. And then you can also put some things back where they were. That's fine, but maybe try things in different places, or try different pieces in a new place. And it just gives you an opportunity to kind of make this space feel fresh. I think it's also a great opportunity to just give everything a thorough cleaning, because when you kind of move everything your way, you're like, oh gosh, I haven't dusted that shelf in a little while, or this is just a good opportunity.
Absolutely. I've seen it. I'm like, oh yeah, that little space underneath that cabinet hasn't seen a duster in, since last Christmas or whatever.
Yeah. So that's a good time to so you can add some new things in. Maybe you want to get, again, like some little candles, or you want to add some holiday decor. But just the simple act of, even if you don't add anything or don't buy anything, the simple act of removing everything, giving it a good cleaning, putting things back in a new way, maybe editing some things out if the room was feeling a little busy for you, or certain seasons we want rooms to feel cozier and more like, so they envelop you a little bit more, and then
Mhm.
other times we want them to feel very clean and fresh and open. So I think just depending on your mood, maybe you put a lot more things back, like you said, you want a lot of little tchotchkes and things out, or maybe you're just ready for a clean slate. So that's a good opportunity to kind of reassess, put things back in a way that suits your mood or the season, and you'll be surprised at just what those little tweaks and just kind of that good cleaning as well just makes your room feel completely fresh. And most of the time it doesn't cost any money at all.
I love it. And I say to people all the time, you don't once you stare at something long enough, you don't even see it. It could be a
Right.
pile of paper, it could be a painting on the wall, it could be whatever, because we just become immune to it when it's in our space 24/7. And I love, because our process that we do when we help people declutter and organize is first removing everything. So you have that clean slate. So I love it because it's really kind of right on brand with what we're doing, which is removing it to then say, what do I want to put back? Do I
Yeah.
even want to put this back? Or like you said, do I want to move it somewhere else? Or, bringing new stuff in. And it's also an inexpensive way to do things. I know, I think in my house, especially, like, I swap out throw pillows and throw blankets, and I mean, I love all that kind of stuff. I love that cozy stuff. And so to just do it, I have fall pillows, and then I have like kind of winter Christmas pillows. And so just to kind of, they're inexpensive things, but they make me feel like my space is new and inviting. And it makes me feel like happy to walk in the door and have a little bit of newness, because again, we all become so, a lot of times even though we're going a million miles an hour, our lives oftentimes can become, feel like Groundhog's Day. And so to
Yeah.
walk into a space that's new and has something, a new element to it, can just really affect your mood.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great trick to use. And I think then maybe you feel more like, okay, I'm ready. I'm excited about inviting people over because you feel
Yes.
this freshness. But you're so right that you start to not notice things in your house. And it could be things that you were your favorite things and you're not even seeing them anymore because they've been in that same spot for so long. And yeah, now I have had times when I move things around and then I don't like it and I move everything back. And my husband's like, so what have
Yes.
you been doing all day? Well, I moved all of the furniture and then I moved it all back. So there you go. But it's fun to try. And I think that it gives you an opportunity, even just I'm sure it's the same with organizing, that once you get working with stuff, you start working with your hands, that just does something in you. You get excited, you want to do more. And that's so true with decorating as well, that you start sort of interacting with your stuff and it starts to, ooh, now I've got a little idea. Now, oh, what about this thing that I haven't, it's been in our storage room. Maybe I'll pull that out and swap it out and appreciate it. It can be, your home can be ever evolving. That doesn't mean you always have to be doing projects and feel like you always have to be updating with trends, but you can always, kind of move things around and swap things out so that it does have this fresh feeling to you when you walk in.
I love it. I love it. Before we go to take our last break, just let our listeners know, where's the best place for them to connect up with you online? Where's the best place for them? Tell them again, drop the name of the book. Of course, we'll have links to everything in our show notes, but just all the things.
Great. Well, the book is Feels Like Home by Marian Parsons. It comes out October 12th. So you can find that anywhere books are sold. And then you can find me on the internet really by Googling Miss Mustard Seed, and you'll pretty much find me. But on Instagram, I'm at Miss Mustard Seed, and my website is missmustardseed.com.
Super great stuff. I really encourage everybody to check it out. Can't wait to see the book. I'm super excited to get my hands on a copy of it. We're going to take one more quick break and we're going to come back. I'm just going to put you in the hot seat for our wrap up questions. So sit tight. All right, Marian. So I really appreciate your conversation and all of your insight. Really, it's getting me excited for things that I can do in my own house. So I
Oh,
love
good.
it. And as somebody who inspires other people, we're always curious about places, resources that inspire our guests. So, what book has and it could be a couple if you have them, has been something that's been really inspirational and transformational in your life? It could be professionally, it could be personally, just some book that you can pass on wisdom to our listeners.
Wow, that's so hard for me because I have hundreds of books.
I know. I was thinking about it when you said I'm a book lover. I'm like, this is going to be either really easy or really hard.
Oh, it's so hard because I love so many books for different things that they say to me and different ways they inspire me. So I'll just go with, there's a couple that I really love for just general creativity. One of them is Austin Kleon. He has a series of books, Steal Like an Artist, Show Your Work, and I forget the third one. But they're so good. They're little books. They're easy to digest, and they are super encouraging if you feel stuck. Oh, the other one's Keep Going. And
love that. Love the title.
I turn to those again and again. They just have so much wisdom and encouragement. And I think they're great for anyone. I mean, I think they're geared towards people who do creative work, but I think for people who are like, oh, I don't feel creative, those are great. And one that I'm listening to right now on an audiobook, and I actually had to buy the physical book because I'm like, it's going too fast, I've got to be able to stop and highlight things, is The Practice by Seth Godin. And is also another book I'm finding a ton of encouragement in it about creativity, work in general, being an entrepreneur. And it's really good. I'm not through it all, so maybe it gets terrible at the end. I hope not. No. But it's been so far, I'm just like, oh, this one's good. So those are a couple of books that I'm really into.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll make sure that we link up to that in our show notes as well. So, and then of course, the last two questions that we ask every guest in every series, which is, in this particular season of your life, where do you feel the most organized and where do you feel like a bit of a hot mess?
Well, I am the most organized where, I'm going to have to think about that for a minute. So I'm a mess when it comes to prioritizing, because I like to do so many different things. I think that is a challenge for me. I think I'm most organized with my supplies. I'm very good at, I love my supplies. And I think you organize the things that you love the most. And so I keep all my art supplies and my brushes and my knitting needles and all of my stuff. I keep it very organized, and I love organizing it and working with it. So
I love it. I'm like looking for anybody that's watching on YouTube, or if not, pop over to our YouTube channel. You could see behind Marian, she's got this great wooden canister with all of her paintbrushes, and I'm like, it just makes me want to get creative and paint, but maybe another time.
Maybe one day.
So okay, so that's most organized. And you said you want to do everything. Is that your hot mess moment?
Yeah, that's my hot mess moment, is because it's more a schedule thing. It's prioritizing. So it's being like, I have so many things that are languishing on the list of projects that are like 3/4 of the way done, that I just need to go and finish them, but I'm too distracted by all the other things I'm doing because there's so many fun things to do,
so many shiny objects,
right? So I constantly am having to be like, okay, I need to get back to my schedule, and I need to make sure that I am prioritizing, and that I'm making time for the things I actually want to do, so that it doesn't just never happen. So that's an area that's a bit of a hot mess at times.
I got it. Well, I appreciate it, Marian, and we all have our moments. So I thank you for sharing yours with our community. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to This Organized Life. Make sure you go check out all of our back catalog wherever you get podcasts. We're also on YouTube. We're on social media at Simply Be Organized. Make sure you check out Marian's work, Miss Mustard Seed, and again, her book. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, I'm Lori Palau. Peace out.